President Bola Tinubu has departed Nigeria for the United Kingdom on a 2-week holiday as part of his annual leave. And tonight, we will be dissecting the messages and issues raised in the Independence Day speech of President Bola Tinubu. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on China's television. I'm Sean Kimbalay. Some of us are still in the mood of the independence celebration. Happy Independence Day to you. If I've not had the opportunity to wish you one, so we need to wish ourselves. There is so much more to discuss. There are those of us who have the opinion about what should be said and what the messaging of the president should be on an Independence Day. Well, we'll be getting into it. I have two men, one from the far north, one from the far south. So I have a mixture of two wisdom from the different side of the divide. Whatever you may be looking at it, two of them, they have very strong views, albeit a lot of data and fact. But we'll be getting into the deep of the matter tonight. Let's tell you that President Bola Tinubu has departed Abuja today for the United Kingdom to begin a 2-week vacation as part of his annual leave. The president was said to have boarded the presidential jet at about 2:30 p.m. this afternoon and was seen leaving in the presence of top government officials. The presidency says President Bola Tinubu would use the 2 weeks as a working vacation and a retreat to reflect on his administration's economic reforms. Is one of those episodes of this program that you don't want to miss. So stick around with me. First, let me serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
Following the president's announcement of planned conferment of national honors on the leadership of the National Assembly in the 1st of October speech, the House of Representatives is dissatisfied with what it describes as discrimination against the Green Chamber. A motion sponsored by all 360 lawmakers draws attention to the conferment of the title Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger on the Senate President and the title Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic on the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Lawmakers argued that both chambers are equal and the Green Chamber should not be referred as a lower chamber. They lament the GCON honor conferred on the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who is considered lower in ranking to the Speaker, and urged the President and the Minister of Special Duties to correct the error. The Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodimma, says as the chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum, he will continue to support the new governor-elect of Edo State, Senator Monday Okpebolo, in his quest to deliver good governance to the people of Edo State. Governor Uzodimma disclosed this at the Government House nowhere at the Imo State capital when the new governor-elect of Edo State, Senator Monday Okpebolo, and his deputy, Dennis Idahosa, paid him a courtesy visit at the Government House. He said he's happy to welcome the governor-elect to the Progressives Governors Forum. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it is yet to release the 2023 voter register to the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. At a press briefing in Port Harcourt, the resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Johnson Alalibo, says RISEC had applied for the register, but it was yet to be released to them due to administrative reasons. Mr. Alalibo further confirmed that the commission is in receipt of the court judgment from Abuja, barring the commission from releasing the register. Meanwhile, the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, has endorsed the October 5 date for the local government elections in Rivers State. At a media briefing in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State chairman of the association, Sosuema Osaro, says their decision was based on careful observation that there is no valid court order preventing the State Independent Electoral Commission from conducting the election. Osaro explained that a recent Federal High Court order in Abuja does not hold weight as it came from a Port Harcourt court which is of equal jurisdiction and had already ordered the election to proceed. However, the Emeka Beke-led group of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has confirmed that the party will participate in the upcoming council elections slated for the 5th of October 2024. In a letter titled Reposition of the Rivers State All Progressives Congress on the forthcoming local government election in Rivers State, State and signed by the chairman, Emeka Bekee, and the state secretary of the party, Mr. Sam Etetegong. They indicated their willingness to take part in the election. A civil society group under the aegis of Joint Action for Democracy are calling on the National Judicial Council to investigate some judges following widespread concern over the integrity of the judiciary and threats to democracy. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the leader of the group, Mr. Peter Ame, notes that the call is on the heels of allegations that the judges have transformed the Federal High Court into a playground for groups in support of politicians to disrupt the upcoming local government elections in Rivers State and describe them as the enemy of democracy. And the People's Democratic Party in Edo State is bent on reclaiming its alleged stolen mandate at the Edo State governorship election. The chairman of the PDP in Edo State, Mr. Anthony Azigbemi, and the Director General of the Governorship Campaign Council, Mr. Matthew Iduri Yekenwe, led supporters on a protest march to the ANEC office in Benin City. They are accusing the electoral umpire of manipulating the September 21 governorship election results, insisting that the police and the APC are also culpable.
There you have it. You're being served with your political roundup stories. Let me also tell you about what the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has been saying. He has officially transmitted a communication to the National Assembly. He's put forward a series of proposals for constitutional amendments to the National Assembly, including a proposal for a rotational presidency between Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. In a letter dated the 30th of August 2024 and addressed to Senator Barau Jibrin, Deputy President and the Senate and the Chair of the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review, the former Vice President outlined his recommendations aimed at strengthening the country's democratic framework. Let's get talking, everyone. And our attention is going to be on yesterday about what the president said. He thinks he did not say. President Bola Tinubu yesterday addressed the nation to mark its 64th independence anniversary on the 1st of October. And reactions have continued to trail some of what the president said. A major controversy, however, has been about him saying that the federal government has cleared over 30 trillion naira in ways and means advances. Well, let me give you a snippet of some of the things that the president said. First, on the issue of the economy, which was its major, take a listen to what the president said.
That your voices are heard. Once again, I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Thanks to the reform, our country attracted foreign direct investment worth more than $30 billion in the last year. We expect to see a leap in food production and a downward spiral in food costs. I promise you, our energy transition program is on course. We are expanding the adoption of the presidential initiative on compressed natural gas for mass transit with private sector players. The federal government is ready to assist the 36 states and FCT in acquiring CNG buses for cheaper public transportation.
That was the president talking about some achievements in the economy. What about security? Take a listen to what he said.
Our administration is winning the war on terror and banditry. Our target is to eliminate all threats of Boko Haram, banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and the scourge of all forms of violent extremism. Within 1 year, our government has eliminated many Boko Haram and bandit commanders faster than ever. As of the last count, over 300 Boko Haram and bandit commanders have been eliminated by our gallant troops in the northeast, northwest, and some other part of the country. We have restored peace to hundreds of communities in the north, and thousands of our people have been able to return home. It is an unfinished business, I agree, which our security agencies are committed to ending as quickly as possible.
All right, so much about what the president said. But let's take a look at all of these issues. I'm being joined by Mr. Daniel Bwala, a lawyer and a political analyst, as also Mr. Kolawole Johnson, political policy and data analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you.
Tonight.
Thank you.
Happy Independence to both of you.
Same to you.
I mean, one thing that I thought was going to happen yesterday, that a lot of people also thought, was when Bayo Onanuga came out and said the president was going to dissolve his cabinet. Were you surprised, Mr. Bwala, that did not happen?
Oh, well, this cabinet reshuffle conversation has been there for a while. People have been speculating. I know that there was a time when it was out in the media that he was going to do it on May 29. He didn't do it. They want to cap it to events. They say, okay, he was going to do it in June 12th. He did not. Then in August, they say, oh, these people would have clocked 1 year, the ministers, that he was going to change it in August. That never happened. Then they brought up a fresh conversation that on independent that he was going to reshuffle the cabinet. And that also never happened because it's not a matter of if but when. And he will do it when he wants to do it. The good thing about everything is that he must have formed his own opinion based on assessment, which has been conducted when they introduced this KPI assessment. And any minister who has not been able to meet up with the assessment will be able to know, because just like JAM, if the cutoff mark is 300, if you get 250, may be considerable in some universities, but the university that requires 300 means if you have not met up with that, then that means you failed. It is the president who is now the overall assessor. There was an internal assessor from DEX officer, you have external assessors, report has been submitted. But above all, he even engaged Nigerian people. He said, go and talk to them about the program. Now it is the overall assessors, the president, and he will do it when he will do it. I know that the media ran with it because when Bayo was responding to a question from the media and the press corps at the press house, the media wanted that to happen. So they created it as a conversation and it trended for about a week. But I want to urge Nigerians to have the patience. The president will do it. It can be tonight, it can be tomorrow morning, it can be any time. But the good thing is that the president has expressed this disappointment at the non-performance of some ministers. Definitely he'll do it.
I'm very sure that ultimately Nigerians are the chief assessors. Yes, the president appointed, but then Nigerians are able to tell who has been performing now. Mr. Johnson, are you surprised that the president didn't do that?
Yeah, especially, if you look at his pedigree, the man Ashwaj Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in Lagos State in those days, every quarter there will be review. I think Pat Utomi mentioned that last year or 2 years ago, thereabout, and where they look at their work plan, what have they done in the last 3 months? Are they executing the work plan as written? Then they look at what they didn't do well. Then the KPI was not even yearly; it was quarterly. So if you look at the pedigree, you would have been expecting the president to have done something by now. Number two, we're also aware that the president engaged KPMG, to access the ministers and some of the appointees, and we learned that a report was submitted, sometimes, back. So if you look at that too, you will wonder, what is the president doing with the report? Is he not in a hurry to perform? Especially if you look at the fact that you have a lot of discontentment in the public space. Now, you don't have eternity to perform. 4 years in the life of a nation is too big. It's too big to, you can't play with that. So I was shocked that the president did do it, especially when we heard, not leave what Bayo is saying. Rumor had it from internal sources that the president was going to do it yesterday. Even today, we learned he has submitted it and that he left the country. But that, again, He's not consistent with his person. He's not a coward. We knew that. He likes taking responsibility for his actions. So that again, we'll be doubting that will it be done in his absence? But that is very likely. And he says something that it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow morning. What's that language?
But Mr. Bwala
Yeah.
is a constant visitor to the president's house, and to the ones that we see on camera and the one that we don't see, either at night or during the day. It's almost like having a spare key to the president's house.
Let me see.
So he probably will know.
You said so.
But let's look at it in this manner. The likes of not only the ministers, we are hearing that some backroom, some very close aides might also go. And the name of someone like Femi Gbajabiamila has been named, has been mentioned. And how critical would that kind of office be if Femi Gbajabiamila goes?
Sure. I think one of the biggest losers of the, I don't want to call it the war of attrition in the public space, has been that man, unfortunately. I think I contributed to the debate at some point where, I also lashed at him. And you won't blame us when you have consistent media report attacking. But unfortunately, I think some months back, we were able to, in the bid to get him further, we investigated some of those allegations, and 3 of them were found to be very untrue. So we stopped. If you investigated the first, the second, the third, and the untrue, I give you. One, they said a certain agency was delivering 500 million naira to him, monthly. I spoke directly with the man. He's out of office. He's angry. He should be able to talk. He said there was nothing like that. I spoke to a head of an agency whom, they also accused, and that one said he has never given him a penny. In fact, I had the balls of that man to squeeze. So it would have been a time for him to talk and expose others. He exposed some other persons and mentioned their name, and he said he's never,
never
given him. He even said that the only occasion that he had any interface with him was when he called him to help one of the, those who had payment in his place, and he told him that what you have with you, please, if you found out that that the document has any issue, do not pay, don't put me in trouble. That he gave that caveat. Then they said a man gave him a certain amount for appointment. I spoke to the man, he's a former governor, and he told me that nothing like that happened. In fact, he said that at his age and status, will he be giving anybody $1 billion for an appointment? So this I've investigated, and very, very untrue.
So,
however, no, please wait. But you can't exonerate or stake your integrity on any politician, not at that level. Why? There are cases of outliers in data analysis. Because, take for example, if you have 5 objects on this table, and each of them is emitting, say 5 degree Celsius in heat, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you measure this one 5, you measure this one 5, you measure this one 5, you measure this one 5. If the last one is emitting 30 degree, and you didn't measure that one, you may conclude that the average, the total heat that they're generating is 5 times 5, which is 25, degrees Celsius. But if you put 5 times 4, 20, and that one alone is taking 30 degrees, and that brings you to 50. So there are cases of outliers like that. So I did not investigate everything. Yeah. I've only told you the one that we went into. However, he would have been the biggest loser. Why? Because with his kind of experience and the fact that he's been there for a while, I don't think the president would not miss him so much. Especially, again, one person gave a commentary that his ambition in Lagos affected him, that those guys went all out against him, knowing well that being close to the president as the chief of staff, he would probably have that edge.
All right. The president has been accused severally about bringing the Lagos. He almost turned the presidency into another Lagos and making it a Lagos Part 1 or Lagos Part 2. And most people that have worked with him in the past. But let my producer bring back some of the faces of those whom some Nigerians have identified as the prominent faces in the Tinubu cabinet, and those whom they say maybe might be retained or not. But Mr. Bwala, how powerful though would a change of cabinet be for President Tinubu? Would it make any significant difference? And some of what Mr. Kolawole Johnson said about the politics that play out within the presidency.
The good thing about President Bola Tinubu is that he knows what he wants and he cannot be controlled. There are people you see, okay, if they put one or two things together and bring it to him, he might be swayed by them. But if you look at him and what historically and now, is that if, for example, he picks interest in you, no matter what he said against you, it will not move him. He's going to be driven by data that he has come, in contact with, and then the decision he has formed on the basis of that. But you see, the choice of who the president works with or doesn't work with is that of the president. It is his prerogative. If you look at Section 5 of the Constitution, it is clear that the executive powers lies in him, and he carries out those duties either by himself, vice president, ministers, or organs of government. It might be a valid argument that people will say there shouldn't be concentration of people from one place or the other. If you look at the people they call, from what I'm hearing and reading, they call the Lagos boys, they are not necessarily indigenous of Lagos. They come from their various places around the country, including Southeast and the North. But probably because they lived over this period of years in Lagos and have worked with him in the past, probably have one link or the other, that is the assumption that he's placing the Lagos boys over and above others. The discretion is that of his. That is my thinking about it. But the most important thing is that there are key, and bringing it back to the issue of Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, is that there are key positions in government that by their very nature, they are bodyguard type positions that you can never be seen as a good man for the whole of the period, you say, because the nature of that place is to take the bullet for the president. You are going to be making decisions on his behalf that he will otherwise not do. So those who do not fancy that decision will not be in your good books. Sometimes you are probably the reservoir or the depository of some of president's decision. The people whose decision favor them will be happy with you, but those ones that decision disfavor them will not be comfortable. All I'm saying in a nutshell is that whichever you turn it, governor or president, the Constitution has empowered him to choose the people he will choose from across the country that he thinks will help him in achieving his mandate. Measurement, I think, should be competence and compellability. You asked about the ministers. I don't think there is anybody in Nigeria that is in doubt that there is a fundamental problem in the administration of ministries by some ministers, because we now know there is a KPI and citizens can actually access it. They call it citizens tracking. You can actually go there and see the KPI of a ministry. And when you see that KPI, you also know what the minister has done. And on your own, you can gauge based on what has been said as the schedule for him and what he has done or not done, and form the opinion that one or two things about his ministry might be impressive. But unfortunately, he may have come short of it.
Let me take you up quickly on what the president said yesterday.
Right.
And there are those of the school of thought that on an Independence Day speech,
right,
your achievement or government propaganda should never surface in an Independence Day speech. Maybe the writers are not thinking in that line or not. There are those who think that Independence Day, you're supposed to be talking about Nigeria's unity, the effort of the heroes that put the nations together, that helped form with the independence. And those who thought that Independence Day should be talking about Nigerians and not about what a government is doing. There are other days for that. And in fact, when the president has said ways and means, there are a lot of people who said that is not correct.
You see, if you look at our code of arms, you will see the creed: unity and faith, peace and progress. Any of these areas, you can outline them or talk about them in your independence speech. So unity and faith might be about unity, about Nigerians, about just like the America they call the State of the Union. But peace and progress also talks about the progress as a country we've made so far. And if you look at his speech, he actually touched on that. He talked about how we have come away from what would have destroyed Nigeria in the 60s, I think 1966 or so, the Civil War, and talk about the progress we've made, talking about how to avoid what will create a problem for Nigeria. He also talked about his own government, because he is to account On Independence Day, you account to the Nigerian people how you manage the common, the commonwealth of the people. With respect to the ways and means, it is blown out of proportion, for God's sake. I know that this is politics. A lot of people will pick one or two things. The crux of the matter with securitization that they are talking about, the ways and means, if you look at the speech, if you look at what the government has done, it is a matter of, I won't say semantics, but probably perspective. If I collect loan from you, Sheun, and it has accumulated to a point where it becomes heavy, that if I have to pay it, it will ground me. I may not be able to do anything. If I reach agreement with you and then securitize it and then spread it over a period, 30, 40 years, where I'm going to be paying annually, but in such a manner that it will not even affect me at all, it will be safe for me to assume that I've addressed that problem. Because now I don't have to have high blood pressure. I don't have to have sleepless night. But then the other person is saying, you should have told us that you actually carried the money and give it back to the central bank. So it is a matter of perspective. The president was right on point.
The president was not right by saying he has cleared it. Is he right?
He has addressed the problem.
But he saying he has cleared it is not true.
No, but what I'm saying is, now whether you call it cleared or address the problem, the whole idea of loan is burden. And so if you collect a loan that creates a burden that makes it impossible for you to move, your prayer and pursuit will be to deal with that situation so it does not impede on your progress. Now, this ways and means has been, a portion of it has been securitized, right? But there has been an agreement with the central bank in such a way that it has been restructured and spread over a period of years, where the government now will be paying and paying until it offset finally. So it will not, in my view, probably people with numbers can come up with issue, but I am talking about perspective. I'm not talking about numbers. The perspective is that we have addressed the problem. Now we don't have to have a problem. We can govern, we can pay our debt, we can invest in infrastructure, because the issue of ways and means now is no longer a thing that will give us sleepless night.
Mr. Johnson.
A restructured loan is not a paid loan. The president is wrong. You've not paid, you've not paid. You've cleared means you have paid. I mean, you can't pay by semantics. Of course, if we'll still have years to pay back that particular loan. So you can't say you have paid when you have not paid it. If it said, we have restructured so that we can do ABC, fine. But saying that he has cleared, that's a lie. I mean, on a national television, I'm sorry. Number two, you asked about about appointment from certain places. During Buhari era, when we raised these, what they told us? He can work with anybody he likes. Well, funny enough, later the same people were now, shouting that why do we have, all the heads of particular agencies from same zone? If we are repeating the same problem, you must address this. See, the president addressed the topic of unity in his broadcast, in his speech, and he said something that we have learned to use our diversity for our unity. No, we haven't learned that. You know that Nigeria right now is more divisive like ever. So it would have been a time for the president to demonstrate, leadership in bringing people together, in unifying the country by ensuring that you don't have so much noise of marginalization of some people. Now, we have laid the foundation for a country that when each man gets there, he wants only his own person. He wants it's not just the president. If you put a man in an office today, go check the list of appointments, the list of those he will employ there. They will probably come from more from his religion, more from his own place and all that. That identity politics, we must address it in Nigeria. Right. There is no region that has the monopoly of competence.
Let's take a break. I need to go on a break. But when we come back, I want us to be able to identify how much of weight that particular speech means for each and every one of us as a people, because we need to move forward as a nation. Those messaging and the communication, what it means. I'll get your final thought, gentlemen. But then I know Professor Utomi will also be joining us on the program. And for me tonight, it's good to hold the Professor Utomi and his generation accountable for the mess Nigeria is in today, because he and his generation are the ones that have ruled us for the last 30 or more years. How have we come to this point? Professor Utomi would try to defend if we're going to put them on the firing squad. I think tonight we need to decide. We'll be back, everyone, after this break. Join us again. I've been having the conversation already with Professor Utomi, and perhaps the way I'm grilling him off the camera may not be as much as what I'm doing to him when we get into camera. Gentlemen, just give me a moment, because I literally dragged Professor Utomi out of that event where he is. Let me spend some few minutes with him, then I'll come back to the studio. Prof, it's good to see you, and happy independence to you.
Same indeed to you.
Yeah. So I was saying earlier, off the camera, that, and I'll list a few things that your generation benefited as we look at 64-year journey, and then those who have said that, how did we get here as a people? Your generation was the generation that finished as graduates and got Pojo vehicle, brand new. Your generation spent almost nothing in going to university. Your generation had scholarship to Harvard, to Cambridge, on the bills of the state. Your generation had half a chicken for lunch. Your generation, I've been hearing Utomi all my life. Your generation have ruled Nigeria for the last 30, 40 years, but yet you've bequeathed almost nothing to our generation. The question is that you and your friends of your generation, how did you get us here?
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much. We can make light of it and joke, but it's not a joking matter. 15 years ago or thereabouts, I think I wrote an op-ed piece in The Guardian that was titled "The Generation That Left Town." And what I was trying to reflect on was that the generation in which this country invested enormously into, in terms of the things you've talked about, quality education and all of that. And I'm saying that generation has never really governed Nigeria. That generation, when they could have governed, the soldiers who were in power governed in a way that made many of the people from my generation opt, I disagree with them, opt to leave town. And literally, the diaspora we know of today is the effect of the frustration of the educated elite from my generation with Nigeria. And my argument, and which is part of the reason that I am building up this so-called new tribe, is to get heavy diaspora give back. To say, look, ask not what your country can do for you, because your country did something for you before. If you saw the telethon that we were on yesterday, we had a cardiologist in Atlanta, Dr. Olatidoye, an ER surgeon, Dr. Adisa, Dr. Emerua from California, and the comprehensive ideas that they have come up with within the new tribe umbrella to give back into Nigeria, to change the medical healthcare system, all completely, free, of themselves. So maybe that's the way my generation is paying back for leaving town. But I agree with you. There is a lot of accounting to be done. And those of us who chose to stay and fight the rot, we have paid a very dear price, but there's no price you can pay that's enough for building a country. Look, I was just saying at the event where I am engaged right now, which I have to run back into in the next 5-10 minutes, that spending more time in the United States as I'm doing right now, 70% of black doctors in America are Nigerian. 10% of all the pharmacists in Maryland are Nigerian. Nigerians are now, because of the high income of most of these people, considered perhaps the most well-off ethnic nationality group in all of North America. The thing is, how do we transfer this accomplishment outside Nigeria, because their country did not give them room to try and build their country? How do we now still reverse so that brain drain becomes brain gain? It is possible, and we're working very hard at it. But there is no question that Nigeria's position placed today is a leadership failure problem. Look, Shehu, we have converted what is our biggest strength, our diversity, into a weakness. You take that diversity and just look at culture and selling culture from different parts of Nigeria. What that means. There's a restaurant in Washington now called The Continent by 3 Nigerians, Igbo, Yoruba, they came together. Fantastic restaurant. I took President Obasanjo there when he came to visit last month, and he's still talking about the suya that we eat there. Look, Nigeria has great strength in its diversity, but weak, horrible politicians have chosen to exploit it in a manner where emotion has trumped reason, and the gap between us and them is widening every day. You look at the American melting pot. Why don't they say you are a Korean, you are a Vietnamese, you are an Italian American, you are Irish American? Because those who led America, its founding fathers, had such great vision and wrote one of the greatest constitutions in human history and built institutions that allowed for that melting pot culture to enable Americans become amongst the greatest people on the planet.
Yeah,
Prof, I think that leadership can help us turn this around in our country.
So I made a joke about a firing squad. I mean, not literally, though. But what I meant when I was,
Shehu, I'm willing to go to the firing squad if it will stop the mess in Nigeria. I assure you, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, because the reason why I made that, and when we were having a pre-chat prior to this interview, and I confronted you. I said, some of those who have crossed the age of 40 in my generation will look back and say, what have we been able? We've got a lot. And some of you, for example, you are 27, you were partaking in governance. You had your part to play in government. And there are those who will say, in the last 25 years of this democracy, is the same names that we have heard. In the last 64 years of our nationhood, we've always experienced virtually the same set of faces, the same set of people, similar ideas. And there are no contemporary input of this generation into how things are to go. So you talked about leadership problem. Where do we go from here if you and your friends in your generation have bequeathed what we have today? When are you leaving the scene so that those of our generation can actually have their own input and new style to be infused in leadership?
You know, Shehu, it was George Orwell who said that those who elect corrupt politicians are not victims, they are accomplices. So part of what has happened to Nigeria is that there is this middle that has become complicit. Your generation is complicit. I wrote this book, Why Not? Which I talked about state capture, keeping fascism, and the criminal hijack of politics in Nigeria. And the central theme of that book is essentially the complicit middle. Your generation could have acted to get rid of these people a long time ago. You mentioned that I was in a presidential advisory position at 27. That is correct. It did not come from Godfather or anything. I just showed up, and John, Momo, and co, I think were young fellows on television back then. And the Director General said to Mohammed Ibrahim, put that guy on television. And I was talking on television, and President and Vice President saying, who is that boy? Can we find him? Look, we had leaders that thought that way in those days. But today, now all they think of is, who is from my village? Who will do this or that for me? That's what we need to change in Nigeria. If we change that, our country is reclaimable. We can win. I just finished saying at the other event where I'm still talking that in 1991, India was technically bankrupt. 3 weeks trading money. Everything was going south. And today, India is the economy in the world, literally, that everybody's turning to. In the next 25 years, it'll be the second largest economy in the world. If India can do it, we can do it.
So the question,
I used to give examples from Singapore.
The question I will ask you, Prof,
and how leadership changed things.
Yes. The question I will ask you, apart from giving you an assignment to make a list of those of you who have stopped this generation from emerging,
Paris Squad.
is the fact that
be clear. What you said to me was to list those who should go before the Paris Squad.
I will confess
I said I list all of them.
Yes.
I add myself, even if I did nothing about where we are.
So,
but I add myself. If my blog,
I will hold you accountable. I will hold you accountable, and you be the secretary to list those of you who are culpable in not allowing this generation to emerge, because there needs to be an emergence of a new tribe, a new generation, young mind, ultra-modern spirit and soul that can change around this country. And the question I will ask you, Prof, where do we start from? Just before you go, where do we start? A new dimension into, we're going to be 65 next year. So we have 1 year into thinking differently. Not only when I'm saying where do we start from, I'm not talking about politics alone. I'm talking about private sector, because the private sector is supposed to even be the core of a generation and societal change. Where do we start from?
It's more fundamental. It's even more fundamental than public sector, private sector. But let me take it on both sides quickly. On the side of public sector, private sector, and all of that, what I have advocated for years, and again, it's nothing extraordinarily original. In 1985, there was a conference in Nairobi, Kenya, that talked about a tripartite approach to governing, where the private sector, the public sector, and the social enterprise sector, as we now call it, govern almost like equals and hold each other accountable. That led to what was called the Enabling Environment Forum, which became the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, which unfortunately did not go the way the ideas were supposed to go. So that's one in terms of structure of governing that can change things. But more importantly, the biggest challenge we have is culture is in collapse in Nigeria. Values shape human progress. How do we get a values revolution? Institutions are critical for human progress. If we can commit to building stronger institutions that push back on people who do not do right, and the rule of law is fully in place. Look at our judiciary, it's a laughing stock, it's a joke. No country can make real progress without a judiciary that you can rely on. Look at the other institutions, whether it's INEC or this or that, they are weak. How do we ensure that we build strong institutions and that we have values that really ensure that character matters and that people of character can show a light? We can do it. It's completely doable. I am absolutely confident because I've seen it happen in human history. If you go and read Jonathan Tupperman and just look at how such policies were implemented in this age of decline, and the example of Singapore and corruption, and even the idea that I suggested into the so-called roadmap of the last administration, the Bolsa Familia idea, and how Nacio Lula da Silva implemented that in Brazil, but we didn't manage to implement it here like it should have been implemented because of our values. Ultimately, values shape human progress. Right. When we have real values and people of character and commitment to service are in positions of public authority, our country will turn around. We have the ingredients, the human capital that it takes to show the way.
Professor Utomi, it's always a pleasure. I wish we had more time. When you please come to Abuja, There is a restaurant I would like to take you. It's probably better than that one in DC that you took President Obasanjo to. So it's a way of luring you. And don't forget your assignment. Bring the list of those of you culpable in dragging our nation to this point. But thank you so much.
Go to the Paris Squad.
Thank you so much, Utomi, for speaking to us
All
tonight.
right, Sheo.
Yeah, it will be fair as part of value also, because I promise I will release you early enough for your program. So let me keep to my word.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me.
Okay.
Come
Thank
back
you.
to the studio.
Thank you, Sheo.
Independence. That was what the president was speaking about, and you heard what Professor Party told me. Has said. And I've heard some people say that what President Tinubu wants is to be the Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria, the man that will change things around. But the question is, Mr. Buala, are we on that path in doing that? There are those who will say maybe we are far away and we're not on the right path.
We are very much on that path, and I will tell you. Part of the characteristic of Lee Kuan Yew at the time was that when he came on board, he initiated a reform. Go and study when he began. The first few years of his reform agenda and reform processes, it was very tough for that country. Understandably so. Anytime you are introducing a reform or what we call a reset in this given circumstance, especially when you know where we're coming from as a nation, fundamentals of our economy was going down at the time President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came, you will know that we are on that path. And why do I say that? If you look at the last 2 quarters, for example, look at the data coming from the data house of Nigeria. The inflation, you have seen a growth and a progressive growth. Now, in terms of the security, like you find in the speech of Mr. President, he talked about the progress we've made in restoring our people to their displaced lands, the killing of the Boko Haram and the bandits. When you talk about the return of the displaced people, I come from Borno State, and I can tell you lots of communities in my state have been restored to their homeland. The natural disaster response, you saw the zeal and the commitment of the president. He had to abandon the hunger to be able to come empathize with the people and then begin this process of dealing with the aftermath of that. Now, part of the issue we talk about the economic situation. Look at these displaced people in our area where we had this flooding. It has taken away the crops of the people, and it will have a consequential effect in food production. Now, look at the foreign investment. When in his speech he talked about the 30 billion investment that we've secured, again, like I said, it's a matter of context. If you want us in the next speech to put it in a way where people will understand in their own language, that's a different thing. But what he is saying, even with respect to the $30 billion investment, is that we secured commitment in that regard. How else do you want him to talk? You see, I know Nigerian people are one, and that's where our focus is. But then we also have the opposition. This is our attitude towards government. We look at Nigeria as a whole. We are guided by the impact on our people and how to change them. We listen to the opposition because the opposition also teach you how to stand right. When it comes to economy, we have our policies, but then we gauge that in pari passu with the perspective of economic experts. And you've been bringing them to your table here. Almost all the economic experts I have personally listened to that came here, there is an acceptance, an admittance of one fact, that the decision the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took with respect to the reform of the economy was okay. What they have been arguing is the modality, the implementation strategy. And understandably so, economy is a theory. It's just like a law. You apply an economic theory. If it doesn't work, you change the theory. And that's why people have emphasized this point of the IMF. IMF is given to you with policy. But in the same IMF, there is an exception called strong country ownership, where you can tinker with the policy of IMF to meet with your specific needs, because the problem in Uganda cannot be the problem in Nigeria. Now, again, lastly, with respect to agriculture, and like I said earlier, the effort is being made because what we want now is to revamp the country's agricultural sector and make sure we have food production. The inability of our people in the Northwest to farm, part of North Central, Northeast, definitely will affect. The president is in no way in denial of this one fact, that the path we're taking, which you talk about, Lee Kuan Yew, will give us an immediate economic consequence. And we're busy looking at how we can ameliorate the hardship of the people. But there is no doubt that our focus, our eye is on the ball. And surely, steadily, but surely, we will get there.
Sure. Let me liken the president to the former British Prime Minister that died about 11 years ago, Margaret Hilda Thatcher. When she came in 1979, Britain was, UK was facing a terrible time economically. I remember that they were under serious debt crisis. Unemployment was high, and quite a number. And she came with the new liberal reforms, very similar to what the president is doing now. And unfortunately, the first few years was very tough. It's so much that unemployment hit 30%, inflation hit 18%, and practically all the economists of the country, said the nation was heading towards doom. A leak came out where the Queen said that her policies were uncaring, confrontational, and socially divisive. But guess what? 3 years after 1982, things changed. Inflation came to about 8%. Unemployment got reduced. There was economic boom. I want to believe in my country. I'm optimistic that these policies will work. However, let me create the caveat. Remember, last year in this same studio, we supported a subsidy removal. But I told us that we have economic insecurity that we should face. And I mentioned agriculture as the number one thing we should face. Really, I think you should. Okay. And I said that because of the policies of subsidy removal and the unification of an exchange rate, that we will face increase in prices. And one item that will affect most is food. That we can't rely on food importation. And knowing well that for some 7-8 years, we've been having backlog of production in agriculture. Benue State, for example, that should be the food basket of the nation, of course, became IDP camp of the nation. Look at the northeast, region that was producing for us. Look at what it is today. That the president would need to have a holistic agricultural policy. That it can't be domiciled anywhere than the state, the unit. But we are not seeing that. Where's the production? Now, people who should be in the farm cannot go there because of insecurity. So, how do you address this? I was expecting the president to take priority on those areas, those farm settlements. Let us secure them for people to be able to farm so that you can have food.
All right.
See, if you address that, the noise will come down. I've not seen that.
Well,
2 years ago, agriculture contributed about 24% to the GDP. We should see increase by,
Gentlemen,
this time around.
Yeah, we're totally out of time. Well, I must sincerely thank you. Mr. Bwala, it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
And call our legend.
The last time I was here was in January when you attacked me. I'm here.
I didn't attack
But guess what?
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Doing a good job. It's difficult.
All right. Let me, just before we close, gentlemen, something in River State is happening, and it does look like, though, if you're a resident in River State, you might have some time to get out of work. So the governor, Similayo Fubara, has made a broadcast. Let me allow you to listen. It's about the local government election. There is public holiday. Isn't that good news for you, Rivers? Take a listen.
Over 10 states in Nigeria have conducted local government council election using the 2023 INEC voters register since the Supreme Court judgment, and Rivers State cannot be an exemption. As the governor of Rivers State, I swore to uphold the Constitution of Nigeria and abide by the rule of law and the principles of democracy. I hereby declare Thursday and Friday, the 3rd and 4th of October 2024, a public holiday for citizens to travel to their communities and participate in the election.
All right. The governor has said the reason for the public holiday is for you to travel, not to sleep at home, participate in the local government election. Interesting scenario playing out in River State, which, of course, will be part of our focus in the coming episode of the program. Daniel Bwala, thanks so much indeed. Kolawole, thank you so much, gentlemen. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. God bless Nigeria.